If I smoke a rapper, it's gonna be legit. It won't because my shit ain't selling the same.
I had lost some of that bite.
They see this fire in my pen and think I'm dodging smoke. I would've lost the Bada, dog. I would've lost the pro.
I would've lost the Bada, dog. I would've lost the pro.
Embarrassing.
Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, the Big Three had an MC hit a quick squeeze out of the conversation. Jermaine named it the Big Three, but was complacent and caving and fornicating with his feelings of fear. So he stuck his rear out at Drake and Kendrick and left the fight. Now he's back with a message that he just might not fall off. He cocked the sawing off, hit the Molotov, shot it right at any doubters. So let's break it all down, but first pound the like and subscribe buttons like some white powder.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.
Man, Lawbreeze and Gentlegrams, J. Cole is back, and don't get it confused, he's swinging. In my humble opinion, that could be very wrong. Only J. Cole could specifically tell us. I do think he's taking some very heavy shots at 3 to 4 individuals, mainly. Number 1, La Brianna, Drake.
Spicy.
Whatever went on behind the scenes with these two has culminated in them going from lovers, hugging and kissing on stage back in 2023 to Kendrick basically dismantling not just the Big Three, but Drake and Cole's entire friendship. And I don't think Cole is holding back on a couple things he needs to get off his chest to Drake. I mean, it's only fair, right? Like, he apologized to Kendrick, but then on Port Antonio, he apologized to Drake, but he sent all those shots at Kendrick on 7 Minute Drill. He's got to come back and give his real thoughts on Drake, right? Plus, I can't imagine Drake was too happy with J. Cole, you know, kind of leaving him stranded in that battle when Cole was really the first to swing.
Kendrick just opened his mouth, and I'm about to put my dick in it right now.
I also think J. Cole is taking shots at Joey Badass. And another Joe as well. Fat Joe. It's going to be very interesting to break down these bars. Because I'm not just saying this to exaggerate. I really do think J. Cole is about to shake hip-hop in a way we haven't seen in a while. Not necessarily by dissing. I think he's getting that out of the way now. But I think the standard that he's going to be rapping on the fall off, and just the overall social commentary he's giving about the game, about, you know, just pop culture, society as a whole, on this project, I think it should have a lot of different types of individuals taking a long look in the mirror and questioning what they stand for, what they believe in, what they bring to the world. There's definitely a lot of interesting content here, and it's no doubt that this is just the appetizer for what we're about to get with the fall off. Now, people are divided, all right? Of course, you know, most of the world is like, this guy cannot talk like he's God level MC anymore. He can't come on a record talking about, I'll put your favorite rapper's neck in a noose. And even if he doesn't, you know, mention that he's killing rappers and he just vaguely talks about being the best and how great of an MC he is, even that's not possible, because when he was truly tested, he walked away, right? He walked away from the challenge.
But at the end of the day, when I listen to it and when it comes out and I see the talk, that don't sit right in my spirit. Trying to find a little angle and downplay his greatness. I want to say right now tonight, how many people think Kendrick Lamar is one of the greatest to ever touch microphone? As do I.
Looks like J. Cole forgot about all that. He's still kind of talking crazy, but he puts an interesting twist on things. An interesting spin on how he exactly reflects on his greatness and what he considers greatness, and even acknowledges that, you know, a lot of people at this point have knocked him out of that Big Three conversation because of his own actions. Now, why this is an interesting release is because both the two dates that Cole is releasing new music on have a lot of significance. Firstly, January 28th, today, the day that he released this project, this is actually Cole's birthday. We know that the fall off is coming on February 6th, which is the 6th day of the second month of the year on the year 26. So 2626, and 26 is the nickname of his hometown of Cumberland, right? So that date for the fall off has a deeper meaning behind that. And drop a comment if I'm wrong, but I think it was Kendrick, you know, throughout the whole beef, when he was doing things, having these moments on significant dates, that really set this trend for rappers releasing new music on significant days in history, or having the date of a release have real meaning behind it.
Kendrick just opened his mouth, and I'm about to put my dick in it right now.
He released the Not Like Us music video on July 4th. He had his first concert after the beef on Juneteenth. He released Watch the Party Die on 9/11, right? And now here comes little old Jermaine dropping the fall off on a date that also has significance to his life. Now, we're going to look at the fall off next week when it drops. That's going to be exciting. But right now, we got to talk about this banger mixtape we got from Cole on his birthday.
I used to be top seed, apology dropped me way out of the top 3.
This is on the mixtape. What's on the fall off, brother?
Winner, trying to outdo myself.
There's no way, bro. You're watching greatness.
When Drake initially started rolling out those Iceman albums, I'm sorry, I promise this is not going to be a video about Drake, but I'm just saying, when he did that first Iceman live stream, I told you guys, be on the lookout for how both Kendrick, Cole, and Drake release their upcoming projects, because it'll be very interesting to see how the biggest acts in music start navigating rollouts differently when they're at, higher leverage points in their career, meaning that J. Cole and Kendrick, for example, now are believed to own their masters, at least to their newer catalog. Drake was in that, $400 million UMG deal, and now he allegedly is rumored to be re-upping or finding a new contract, which could put him at a higher point in leverage. These are the biggest stars in hip-hop, and they're at a point in their careers where they now have more ownership. They now have more freedom and creative control to roll out projects in unique ways because they're much bigger artists. They could just drop a surprise album and still generate huge buzz. They don't need the single, the traditional album promo to build the hype, right? So you really got to look at those type of artists. And not just in hip-hop, the Weeknds, Taylor Swifts, Bad Bunnies, the ones who are massive and don't really need to be confined to a traditional album rollout. You got to look at them to see how they actually maneuver releasing their new projects, because that's going to dictate how the future of music promotion and world building with your new projects is going to look in the future. I mean, even with Tyler, the Creator, we're seeing this, right? The way he released Don't Tap the Glass or Chromacopia on a Monday, they were basically surprise releases. Like, there was a lot of unique angles behind them. I bring up Cole, Kendrick, and Drake specifically to look at their rollouts because there also was so much pressure on all of them to deliver after the big three was basically dismantled and hip-hop was completely shaken by these three. Obviously, their next three projects are some of the most important in their career because they are that first declarative statement. I don't know how to pronounce that. Declarative statement after this big beef, right? That they all participated in at some point in time.
I study
Big beef
for a living.
So with Kendrick, you got the surprise GNX drop and then the GNX Stadium tour. Before the album, you got, the Ken and Friends pop-out concert, which was the most streamed Amazon live music performance in history at the time. Then you also had the Super Bowl performance, the strategic collaborations with Clips and Playboi Carti. Like, all of these things were very calculated. So it was interesting to see how he kind of rolled out his next project. And even really kicking it off with Watch the Party Die, which was released only onto Instagram. A lot of these moves, even the way they just released the music, was interesting to see.
Spicy.
Drake's rollout was also very interesting because he started it with the 100 gigs whole campaign thing where he put a bunch of old footage of him, in the studio, recording, practicing for tour, and some unreleased songs all on this random website and this random Instagram account, right? Then he does the Iceman live streams. Then he does the 3-day wireless festival where he's headlining with a different sound every night. A lot of these things are kind of unconventional ways to start rolling out a project, right? And then you have J. Cole, who, in my opinion, had not the most memorable rollout, but in terms of a rollout that actually directly connects to his core fan base, I think J. Cole executed that the best. Let me explain. First, last year he had his Inevitable podcast series, which basically brought his fan base from the very first moments of his career all the way up to Forest Hills Drive, and the exact artistic and just personal evolution J. Cole faced as a creator and as a human being. He previewed unreleased music and told the stories around, the most pivotal moments in his career on this podcast series with his right-hand guy, Ebe.
Did you tell Dr. Dre about Kendrick?
Eve! Yeah, Ebe is here, ladies and gentlemen. He's been requesting your presence all night. He just asked the craziest question, which, yes, the answer is yes, I did.
And that was really a build-up to the fall-off because obviously the fall-off is J. Cole kind of, establishing to the world that he doesn't want the traditional fall-off where, he starts making crappy music or sounds uninspired. He wants his fall-off or his, last moment to be his best work because he wasn't able to execute on that with his first work. So that whole podcast really builds up the context behind, how J. Cole wanted to approach his career, what ended up going right, what went wrong, and just how he kind of evolved into the artist he is today. It really brought you directly through that journey. It was a great listen. After that, you got the Forest Hills Drive 10-year anniversary tour. So the podcast ended with him explaining the creative process behind making Forest Hills Drive. And then right when that podcast was released, he also did a couple shows at Madison Square Garden to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of that album, Forest Hills Drive. Then, of course, just a couple weeks ago, he announces the Fall Off, and now he's releasing this mixtape.
This is on the mixtape. What's on the fall off, brother?
What's interesting is that all of these different things that he's been doing, the Forest Hills Drive shows, the Inevitable podcast, the new mixtape, the Fall Off album itself, all of that has only been available to actually purchase or listen to or whatever the case is through J. Cole's own direct-to-consumer website. And each of these items, even those live shows that he was doing, were available to purchase for just $1. Now, why that's significant is because it brings his fan base back to the early days of his career. All of this stuff is tying back to the foundation of how J. Cole actually started off. And that was with $1 and a Dream.
In New York, you know, try to sell your CD, they ask for $10 or $5 or something. Yeah. It's like, yo, bro, I don't know who you are. I'm not about to pay $10 for your CD. I don't know you. So it's like, I'm understanding that and I'm knowing like, yo, the point is not to go down there and make money. The point is to spread the word. So when we get down there, we're going to go up to people and we're going to pitch to them this. Here's the CD. I know if I give it to you for free, you're going to throw this shit away as soon as you get around the corner. I know that. But if you give me $1 right now, I know you're going to listen to, you at least going to play the first or second song if you pay, because guess what? I know you ain't going to throw $1 on the ground. Pay me $1 and you got the CD and all I'm asking is that you listen, boom, boom.
Now, I'm hoping they let me play that Inevitable clip in this video, but if it got copyrighted, basically the whole premise of $1 and a Dream stemmed from J. Cole selling his early mixtapes on his college campus for just $1. Now, his mentality behind this is that, you know, most people go around at that point in time, back when mixtapes were still sold as physical copies, they would be sold for like $10 on the street, right? Or people would just give them out for free. Now, Cole realized it's a bad idea to sell them for $10 because you're not trying to, you know, make money with these tapes. You're really just trying to get your name out there, get your music heard. And that's cool and all, and you could give away your mixtape for free to get it in as many hands as possible, but if someone gets something for free, they're likely to just throw it out.
5,000! 5,000! That's $5,000!
If they spend $1 for it, they feel like they made at least a slight investment, especially back then when, you know, $1 with inflation was worth a lot more 15 to 20 years ago than it is today. But yeah, it's like the psychological trick of even if you spend a little bit, you're going to remember the tape. You're going to at least want to keep it and maybe listen to it instead of just tossing it away. So this was Cole's strategy back then. This is how he was kind of, you know, building his buzz up on the internet early on before he was even signed to Rock Nation. That's a story for another day. I know, you know, the whole internet is saying that Cole was dissing Jay-Z on that song a couple weeks ago. Well, now he's kind of moved on to different targets.
The first song he heard, he was just like, yo, who is this kid? Can you bring him to me?
From Fayetteville, North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. You know, once I got the news, I really didn't believe it. You know, people like, yo, somebody called me, they're like, yo, Jay wants to sit down with you. And it's kind of like, you know, half excitement, half like, yeah, right. You know, like whatever. I believe it when I see it.
So that $1 and a Dream initial campaign when he was selling those tapes, that built the groundwork for J. Cole to get discovered by Jay-Z. And he was able to track his buzz and monitor his growth because this was around, you know, 2008, 2009 when Twitter had just emerged. And J. Cole and his team were very early on tracking the rise of his engagement on different social platforms like that. This was, you know, the early days of the blog era. Great times.
Twitter was around. I could see the comments on the blog. I could see people like reaching out. I could see the reviews. And then we hit the road and there was people like, yo, J. Cole. I would go places and people would know who I am. I'm in the Honda Civic. I'm like, yo.
That's me, the rap star in my Honda Civic.
Yeah, this is embarrassing. So I knew it was having an impact.
J. Cole kept that $1 and a Dream campaign going when he actually made it big. And this was a lot more strategic than you might think. By the time Cole's second album rolled around, Born Sinner, he wanted a way to tap back into the nostalgia of his mixtape era, because obviously Cole has a very heavy mixtape catalog, and he wanted to connect with his core fan base. So what he did was he started the $1 and a Dream shows, where basically he announced before the album's release around 6 surprise shows where to enter into potentially getting a ticket, you pay $1, and it's basically like a first come, first serve type of thing. All the locations for the different shows were kept a secret until the day of. And at the shows, he performed his mixtape tracks for 1,000 people. Again, first come, first serve, and all the tickets just costed $1, bringing it back to the essence of Cole selling his early mixtapes for $1 on his college campus. Now, Cole actually continued these Dollar and a Dream shows all the way up until Forest Hills Drive by 2015. And you might think he was, losing a lot of money selling these tickets for $1 when stage design, production, bringing all his people and his crew state to state to actually, execute on these shows. That's some expensive stuff. Well, there was a bigger purpose behind it. See, the same way he was selling those mixtapes early on for $1, he was actually very likely losing money on those mixtapes because to actually print the CD, that cost more than $1, but what he was gaining wasn't tangible. It was a deeper connection with fans that would pay off in the long term. And it was the same thing with those Dollar and a Dream shows. There was a really interesting article that came out around the time in 2015 when he was doing them because people were questioning, how is he actually making money off this? And this article made the bold statement that J. Cole is still making millions of dollars from a $1 concert. How is that possible? Well, the Dollar and a Dream tours made 19 stops in 3 years. 9 stops in 2013, 6 in 2014, and 4 in 2015. According to J. Cole's 2014 interview with Noisy, each Dollar and a Dream show costed 6 figures to run. If we assume it costed $150,000 to execute each one of those 19 shows, that's almost $3 million in total. Based on estimates, each small concert venue had an average of 3,000 fans. So I was wrong. It wasn't 1,000 fans that were paying $1 for each of these shows. It was 3,000 fans on average per show. But across 19 stops, that's nearly 60,000 day one fans who had their dreams come true. They got to see J. Cole perform all his mixtape cuts for $1. If we spread the $3 million across 60,000 fans, Cole created lasting connections with each fan for only $50. Basically, like if the show cost $150,000 and there was 3,000 people in attendance, that means that for each person in attendance, it costed J. Cole $50 to actually make that show happen. But these connections became lifelong relationships, translating to future concert, album, and merchandise sales, right? It's likely that each of those fans who saw J. Cole for $1 way back then turned into some of his most loyal fans. Now, many artists and companies follow the 1,000 true fans theory. To earn $100,000, you need only 1,000 fans who consume your work enough to equal $100 in profit per fan per year. J. Cole might have converted 60,000 day ones into true fans just from that Dollar and a Dream tour alone. And considering the impact from his other work, that number is likely higher. All that stuff adds up. All those years of talking to people, all those years of doing Dollar and a Dream shows, all those years of going on tours that people weren't seeing, you need to go through that. You have to put in the work to get to the point where music can sell. That's a quote from J. Cole's right-hand guy, Ebe.
The idea of the tour is like, let's do a tour where we only charge $1 and we let people know like we're not doing the singles, we're not doing the hits, we're not even doing the new album. We're doing a selection of classics, the stuff that kind of like got us here. This year just happens to be the 5-year anniversary of the warm-up. Some of these songs I never performed until this tour. It was a time when I was super insecure about like doing these songs because nobody knew them outside of the internet.
And it looks like that strategy worked because 10 years later, they're doing the exact same thing. That 10-year anniversary Forest Hills Drive concert that Cole did, he sold 1,000 tickets for just $1. I believe he also sold like 2014 limited edition vinyls of Forest Hills Drive on his website to celebrate the 10-year anniversary as well. And now here we are right before the fall off and he is selling his new mixtape for $1. I mean, you could pay $10,000 for it, but the option is there and the lowest price is $1. By tapping back into that nostalgia and bringing fans directly onto his own platform, his own website to consume all this different type of content is really enabling Cole to connect with his fans on a different level and in a very unique way. But there's more lore behind the way that J. Cole is releasing this specific project. Like I mentioned before, it was released on his birthday, but this isn't the first time J. Cole wanted to release a mixtape on his birthday. Especially a mixtape that was constructed the way this new one was. See, back in the day, when J. Cole planned to release The Warm-Up, his second mixtape, it was just supposed to be a collection of freestyles over other rappers' beats similar to Lil Wayne's The Drought or Dedication series. But speaking of Wayne, this is right around the time when Wayne had signed Drake.
Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good. Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good.
who just released a mixtape that changed the game in So Far Gone, and this was revolutionary for the fact that it wasn't a collection of freestyles, it was packaged like a real album and generated hits the way a real album would. So this is when Cole realized, okay, I gotta do the same if I want to compete on this level. And the warm-up, which was initially again a mixtape full of freestyles that he wanted to release on January 28th, 2009, his birthday, ended up becoming like a real full-fledged album, one of his best bodies of work, but it did end up getting delayed until the summer of 2009 to basically restructure the entire project after Drake released his massive mixtape. And I bring all this up to say it's fitting that 15 years later, or more than 15 years later, J. Cole is finally fulfilling that goal he had early on in his career, where he wanted to drop a mixtape on his birthday full of just straight freestyles. He just accomplished that with this birthday Blizzard tape.
The one was going to be all freestyles, like Dedication, like Lil Wayne Dedication, which I loved. I was like, oh, I'm going to just kill all these freestyles. But what happened was the game changed the minute Drake dropped So Far Gone. And I was already going to put some of these album songs on the warm-up, but the minute he dropped So Far Gone, it was like, not only am I going to put these on there, but I'm going to put all of these motherfuckers on there because...
Probably you have to stack the deck.
Yeah, because I have to show them I got to come and play my best hand too. I put that out 4 months after I got my deal. We were supposed to put that out. Eve was bugging the shit out of me. We need to chop this warm up. I'm telling you, we didn't have no deal.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, it's time. I'm like, I just had a feeling. I always follow my gut feelings. Even with not going with January 28th, I always just try to follow my gut. If there's a strange feeling, I hold back. And I always know there's a reason for holding back.
And leading up to the fall off, this really does feel like a full circle moment from his debut. Remember how J. Cole wanted his first album to be that unanimous classic. He didn't get that due to label politics that kind of forced the poppy commercial sound on his singles, which muddied the waters on his first project. But now with the fall off, he's able to create what he wants, that undisputed classic project, right? He's finally fulfilling that with what potentially might be his final album, and at the same time he's bringing back that mixtape era feel, the feeling you got in 2009 refreshing Dat Piff, or even the generation prior buying Clue mixtapes off of bootleggers. Cole is definitely restoring that feeling. It's not the first time that J. Cole has attached an EP or a mixtape to his rollouts. In fact, most of his album rollouts actually come with an extra side project attached to them, like this one. Obviously, leading up to his debut, Cole World, I mean, you had Friday Night Lights, The Warm Up, The Come Up, a lot of the best songs that were meant for his first album so he can make it that classic, ended up on those prior mixtapes because he needed to build the buzz up to actually be able to get a release date for that first album. Then by his second album, Born Sinner, he released those 2 EPs, Truly Yours. For Forest Hills Drive, I don't believe he dropped any sort of extra project with it, but he did perform an exclusive track, I believe on Conan O'Brien's late night show.
We celebrated like Obama waited until his last day in office to tell the nation brothers is getting their reparations. Hey.
Then, of course, 2 years later with For Your Eyes Only, he dropped those 2 songs with the project, False Prophets and Everybody Dies. And similar to this new mixtape, on those 2 songs, Cole was really reflecting on the game and some of the biggest players in it, with many people believe he was dissing a lot of the SoundCloud era rappers at the time, calling them short bus rappers, also dissing Kanye West and Wale. I touched on that in my previous J. Cole video. KOD, his next project, I don't think there was any special EP or extra music that came with it, but that rollout was interesting because he obviously dissed Lil Pump on the bonus track, which was the first time he ever teased the fall off, 1985, the intro to the fall off, and then after that led him to actually sit down with Lil Pump for an interview. Then, before the offseason, that was probably my favorite rollout of all time for J. Cole in his career because he went on this massive feature run. He had huge hits like Middle Child in the London. He introduced his Dreamville artists to the game, put them on a high level with Revenge of the Dreamers 3. And it seems like all this was pre-planned, right? Like, you remember that checklist that J. Cole showed us in 2023 where it said he had the feature run, then he had this mysterious It's a Boy project coming, then he had the fall off. We know the fall off has been in the work for over a decade at this point. Later in this video, I'll explain to you what J. Cole has revealed to us about what the true meaning of the fall off is. And I think because of how many different renditions of this fall off album J. Cole has had, I mean, again, he said he's had like 10 different versions of it.
There's songs that have never been heard where it was like at some point in time that was on the fall off. I've had maybe 6 iterations of this album.
I think the rollout has kind of shifted and plans have changed so many times. Like, I think initially he probably was about to drop this project called It's a Boy. And then I think that transformed into Might Delete Later, which we got in 2024. And I think that if it wasn't for the way the beef turned out, we would have got the fall off a lot sooner, and Might Delete Later would have been like just the appetizer for what we would have gotten on the fall off. But I think having that extra time to really sit with things and plan this rollout even more carefully has allowed J. Cole to make it feel like, you know, this entire world he's building here feels very close to home. Like the album cover featuring the beat making machine that he had growing up as a child, it being the first thing that he learned how to make beats on.
I begged my mom every day for a beat machine. Every day for like a year and a half. And when I was 15, she made it happen, and she got this thing right here. It's my very first beat machine. I know y'all use Fruity Loops. I'm on Logic. Nobody's using analog things anymore, but this was the first thing in like the year 2000. It's a sampler. It don't come with barely no sounds, and I had to figure out how to use this. And that's when I started making my own beats, writing my own songs. It all started on this machine right here.
Even the song he released, Disc 2, Track 2, where he's rapping his entire life backwards to frontwards, reflecting on literally dying and then bringing it all the way back to when he was first born. And now you have this mixtape, which, like we just reviewed, makes so many callbacks to the early days of his career with the Dollar and the Dream stuff. Hits close to home because this is how he actually wanted to make his introduction to the game when he first signed to Roc Nation, by just releasing a mixtape full of straight freestyles. Him finally being able to fulfill that before he fulfills his biggest dream of his career, which was to create that unanimous classic, which he will hopefully bring us with the Fall Off. And beyond that, I think where Cole is trying to be strategic with things on this project is to basically get all of his kind of thoughts on the beef and the aftermath of the beef out of the way with this mixtape, so that the fall off can almost be like a clean slate and have no distractions on it, strictly fulfilling the concept of what the quote unquote fall off means to J. Cole, which we'll review later in this video. But we got to now review this mixtape and all the shots, all the references Cole has brought to the table.
Spicy.
Now, already people are mad, like I mentioned before. And don't get me wrong, some criticisms are valid. You had Glasses Malone extremely disappointed in the fact that, you know, obviously Cole backed out of this beef, right? And that was after years of talking about he was the best MC, his bars are like a gun, all that tough talk just to back out of the beef. And now he's back here crapping on, you know, rappers who need to just diss for an album rollout, but seemingly still talking a lot of crap about the industry, a lot of ways that rappers move, like talking crap about how rappers move when you're also saying all rappers do is diss to roll out an album. But meanwhile, what are you doing exactly here? The only difference is Cole is not putting a label on these bullets that he's firing. So you have people like Glasses Malone who are disappointed that Cole, who was known throughout his entire career to rap about not necessarily the most political issues, but definitely real issues that everyday people go through, right? Even like we reviewed before, I mean, before 2014 Forest Hills Drive, he premiered a third verse of his song Be Free on the Letterman show. I was wrong. It wasn't O'Brien. It was the Letterman late night show. And on that song, I mean, he's rapping about some very heavy stuff, right? This was, you know, coming up to Obama's last term in office, and J. Cole was criticizing, you know, the lack of change in society, saying, we celebrated like Obama waited until his last day in office to tell the nation's brothers is getting their reparations. Hey, a man can dream, can't he? No disrespect. In terms of change, I haven't seen any. Maybe he had good intentions, but was stifled by the system and was sad to learn that he actually couldn't bring any. That's what I get for thinking this world is fair. They let a brother steer the ship and never told him that ship was sinking. Meanwhile, on this new mixtape, he's not really getting deep on that type of level, right? He's just kind of dissing the industry, dissing the way different rappers move. And I mean, after apologizing for trying to challenge the best MC in the game, it looks kind of funny when you're going back to your old ways of kind of criticizing the game, right? This is not coming from me. This is, I believe, what Glasses Malone was kind of disappointed at about this rollout.
Talking about people sold their soul to Lucian, or this person got streams and bots. Why are you only talking about rappers? Like all this shit that's going on, right? And the J. Cole that I remember, right, when I first kind of thought he was such a fantastic, he was talking about real life things. Even if they leaned a bit pop sometimes, they were real life things, right? It could be the Crooked Smile, it could be these songs that will make you feel better about being human. So you put out a bunch of raps where you talking shit about other rappers and you don't say the rappers.
It's a freestyle mixtape, dude. Like, come on,
you can
bro.
freestyle about real shit. You don't got to be a sucker to freestyle. There's a bunch of real shit happening that is not big. You're talking about to fans who's botting.
Now, in my opinion, J. Cole is saving the heavy subject matter for the fall off, right? This was just a free mixtape. Well, it was technically $1, but this was just like a bunch of loose freestyles, right? And I do think it served its purpose well in terms of allowing J. Cole to just get off his chest everything he wanted to say related to the battle so that he doesn't need to waste time talking about it on the fall off. Because if you really think about it, right? Yeah, there was stuff that J. Cole needed to address, but if we want to think about what the fall off will mean to J. Cole fans in 10 years from now, they're not going to be thinking of, oh, this project was important to me because it was Cole reflecting on the battle. No, they're going to think about how timeless is this music? Does this speak to who J. Cole was as a person? This album is meant to encapsulate, J. Cole's entire career, not just this one particular period of time when he backed out of a rap battle, right? So I'd rather him actually reflect on the rap battle in a separate project and leave the fall off to dive deeper into his life, his career, and just things going on within the world. So it's interesting, the freestyles on this track list are all Bad Boy era instrumentals, right? They're all Diddy beats. Why J. Cole particularly chose to freestyle over Diddy beats only, I couldn't tell you. I mean, the first song on the track list, Bronx Zoo Freestyle, which is probably my personal favorite, that's the Victory beat by Diddy featuring Biggie and Busta Rhymes, and this is another full circle moment because J. Cole had actually freestyled to this beat very early on in his career in about 2007.
I ain't no gangster, I ain't trying to fake the funk. Don't misinterpret that. My mama ain't raised no punk, so jump.
But the irony in him freestyling over solely Diddy era beats is the fact that J. Cole had actually fought Diddy at a nightclub over Kendrick Lamar's Control verse. Diddy had a problem with Kendrick calling himself the King of New York on that record, and they're all at the club. J. Cole, Diddy, Kendrick, and even Jay-Z and Beyonce. They're in a particular section of the club. Punch is there from TDE, and he recounted the story several times, saying that the fight between Diddy and J. Cole escalated so high to the point where Diddy actually threatened to cut J. Cole in the face with a glass Ciroc bottle. Absolutely insane. And now here we are, like 10 years later, J. Cole is freestyling over only Diddy beats on what might be his final project ever.
The ones who got an altercation earlier, he's like, yeah. And if you ever say what you said to me earlier, nigga, and he grabbed a bottle from the table, and he said, what you gonna do? Hit me on my head with a bottle? He's like, nah, I'm gonna break it on the table, I'm gonna cut your throat.
Now, J. Cole makes a statement right off the rip on this first track, Bronx Zoo Freestyle. Some of the opening bars, J. Cole raps, somewhere along the way, I hate to say, we lost shame. Grown men peddling gossip of all things. I remember when it was rapping and ball playing. Now the bread and butter is yapping and parlaying. Aw man, your name's a big conversation. Max deals for Luka Doncic lobbing to Ayton. No, nowadays you can make a grip commentating if you master two skills, either D-riding or hating. Look around, the hating and D-riding is blatant. Tell mama your ticket to finally live out of her basement was found in one magical word, and it's engagement. And nothing brings that like drama. You might wanna. Personally, I don't write comments, I write commas.
Oh, it's just too good. Oh, it's just too good.
Now, I think these bars are at a plethora of individuals, alright? Firstly, when Cole mentions grown men peddling gossip of all things, and the bread and butter coming from yapping and parlaying, he's obviously talking about the podcasters, and likely the ones who have not had the best things to say about him, right? There was Akademiks, who was saying that he doesn't want to hear any tough talking from Cole on his new project, probably considering the fact that he left Akademiks' rich baby daddy Drake out to dry in the battle, right? Then you also have Fat Joe, who surprisingly on his new podcast had no problem saying how excited he is for Drake's upcoming Iceman album, but went on a whole, monologue about how he's not looking to hear any dissing from Cole and he'll never look at Cole the same way. And the irony in all that is that this conversation stemmed from Jadakiss bringing J. Cole up because J. Cole had reached out to Jadakiss to clear his beat for this freestyle mixtape, right? And that led Fat Joe to go into this whole yap hating session about Cole, right? And here Cole is talking about, look around, the hating and the D-riding is blatant. Like, you could get a check off of just hating. Maybe it's a response to Fat Joe. Check out what he had to say.
You said J. Cole. I don't look at him the same. He ain't come outside. Sometimes you tell me, Joe, you want the 100 million, this, that, you got to say the truth. I don't look at him the same. The fucking sword is dull. I don't care what he spit. Because I've been listening to him spitting. I always said he's one of the greatest. And all that is irrelevant to me when you talking all that gangster shit and they call you to the yard and you don't step outside. I can't look at you. That's like you seeing the dude who they always told you, and you always thought he was tough. And you see some other kingpin nigga, some smack his cheek off and the nigga, my bad, and walk off. I'm keeping it a buck with you.
So after everything he's been through, do you think this needs to be like the album of the year?
Will be.
Think everyone's gonna give him love when it comes out?
For sure. That's Drake, one of the biggest artists in the history of hip-hop music. That's how I look at this
music,
shit.
Man. The music is great.
I don't give a fuck if you lose. I never forget Everlast and Eminem. Everlast definitely knew he couldn't beat Eminem, but he came outside to the yard. He came outside. And so that's just how I look at it. Big up J. Cole, the whole crew, North Carolina and all that, but he caught stage fright. Supposed to come outside, man. He did.
He did, man.
All right.
He bowed out gracefully, but that don't never mean he wasn't. I mean, where we come from, all call outs.
What they say in the Game of Thrones, what they say, the North never forgets. Remember when the Starks come? They got the North never forgets.
Think everyone's gonna give him love when it comes out?
For sure. That's Drake, one of the biggest artists. You're not waiting 6 months to let the smoke clear to come back outside and talk legendary and all that. Like, it's like the North never forgets.
Into that. He just ended what he into.
All right.
The new
Coming
shit,
from you,
shit is crazy.
You go to war. Jadakiss go to war. Jadakiss go to war. The Locks go to war. I'm a J. Cole fan. I'm just telling you, they don't hit me as tough. You know what I'm saying? If Fat Joe talking all that Fat Joe the Gangster, there's a video of me getting my face smacked off. You ain't gonna hear Flo Joe the same. You gonna be like, man, and that was your face smacked off in public. Was like, yo, and said, no, I rescind it. I'm coming back. No, I didn't mean it.
So after everything he's been through, do you think this needs to be like the album of the year, album of his career?
It will be. You know when you ride and bike and then you do the pedal backwards, the shit pedals backwards?
Roll back.
That's what he did. He rolled back, brother. You know when the fucking 10-speed be going tick, 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 tick? Yo, you know when you hear this shit? No, you hear the tick, tick? The tick, 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 tick. You know when your shit going back?
Yeah, but when you roll that shit back with the metal pedals and that scrape up your shins.
Kill you.
Oof.
Now, the third person who J. Cole could be referencing in these bars is Cameron. See, if you guys didn't know, Cameron featured on the Might Delete Later project that Cole released in 2024 when he was, dissing and deleting his Kendrick disses. Cameron was on that project, and he allegedly had asked Cole in return, not monetary compensation, but instead either a verse from Cole or for Cole to appear on his podcast. Now, we know after Cole apologized to Kendrick, he kind of wasn't really looking to be in the public light, and when he did speak or he did pop out, it was really on his own terms, like we looked at before with the Inevitable podcast or his Dollar and a Dream show, etc. So he obviously didn't end up giving Cameron a verse or a podcast appearance, and because of that, Cameron had actually went and sued J. Cole for, I believe, $500,000 allegedly. And I do believe that Cameron's podcast also has a sponsorship deal with a gambling company. I think it was Prize Picks. I can't keep up with all these gambling companies anymore. I know Akademiks also has a partnership with Stake. So when J. Cole is talking about the bread and butter is no longer about rapping and ball playing. Instead, you see all these live streamers making a bunch of money. These rappers turning to becoming podcasters, right? You see people like me on YouTube yapping away.
Those 3 Big Macs are for me.
And then again, you got guys like Akademiks who end up taking these gambling sponsorships, which is really the worst thing of all, in my opinion, when you're pushing that toxicity, that poison onto the youth and onto your audience, especially considering, I'm not going to spend too long ranting about Akademiks, but he's acknowledged, like when Offset was going through his gambling drama at the Hard Knock Casino, Akademiks was, pretty much understanding of the entire ins and outs of going on a gambling bender. So to then be promoting companies like Stake on your page when you are well aware of how bad a gambling addiction could get is kind of crazy to me, but that's the quickest way to a bag these days, right? We saw Drake team up with Stake and Kick and Adin Ross to do all these gambling live streams. He could be talking about Drake here, but he's making the whole premise of this initial verse about how, gossip has plagued the industry, right? And you couple, your gossip podcast with a gambling sponsorship, that's the new way to get rich. It's no longer about rapping or joining the NBA or the league or whatever the case is. I think he's definitely speaking to a very big modern day problem at this point. It also speaks to the division within hip hop, right? Because, I mean, I'm guilty of this, I'll be honest. It's hard to put your bias aside when you're, commenting on your favorite artist, right? So sometimes, like he said on the timeline, all you'll see is either deriding or hating. You'll see the quote unquote OV hoes or the quote unquote K-bots quote unquote deriding for their side of things and then hating on the other side, right? I think this is Cole's way of speaking on the division that we've seen within hip hop ever since this battle transpired. And just like, his song Middle Child, he's kind of playing the middle on all these things, right? Because he's not on Kendrick or Drake's side, and neither are his fan base, because he went against Kendrick, but he never really ended up against one of these rappers because he apologized and backed out of the whole thing. So he's really looking at this from a bird's eye view. And by the end of that set of bars where he's talking about how, yapping and gossiping and gambling will, pay your rent and get you out of your mama's basement, in the end, he circles back to say, I don't do that. Instead, I paint pictures with my pen and then collect commas off of that. And people, the world, are questioning, will the fall off be the end all be all? And he doesn't really give an answer as to whether the fall off will be his last final album. And these next set of bars are interesting as well. Cole raps, I'm a whole new breed for those that wonder who he thinks he is. That thunder at night that wake up the sleepyheads. Just when you thought your boy was completely dead, boom, walked out of that tomb like Matthew said that Jesus did. Now, the whole sleepyheads bar, that he's the thunder at night that wakes up the sleepyheads, that's obviously in reference to the fact that everyone says Cole makes sleepy music, right? Even Akademiks had said that, he needs new sleepy music, and that's why he's excited for the fall off. Then he's obviously referencing the fact that everyone thought, he was dead and gone after this battle, right? He apologized. How do you come back from something like that? And he says, boom, I'm walking out of that tombstone that they put me in, that they gave to me when they thought my career was done in the trash. He says, the whole game is on my shoulders, not even straining to hold it. I can spin it around my fingers and bowl it. When I write, it's like I'm guided by the angels I noticed. It's like the ghost of Christopher Wallace had come in and wrote it. First name Jermaine and it's goated. Never once has fame been the motive, far from it. Respect first, next up, my net worth. Now, couple interesting references here. Firstly, I don't much care for when Cole gets in this whole bag of just kind of saying a whole lot of nothing, just bragging about how great he is with, good wordplay and very strong rhyme schemes. He's kind of saying a whole lot of nothing, right? There's no substance here, and also there's not a lot of personality, in my opinion. Like, when I think of, rappers kind of rapping about how great they are, I think of Lil Wayne. But with Lil Wayne, you got bars like Weezy F baby and the F is for phenomenal. Or B, real G's move in silence like lasagna. No, these bars are not so intricate, but they had flavor, they had character to them,
Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good. Oh, Lil Wayne's just too good.
Anyways, back to Cole. What I thought was really interesting here is that A, he's back to calling himself the GOAT, right? Which I guess, as he should. As long as he's not saying he's going to kill your favorite rapper, he could say he's the greatest as much as he wants. Where it gets interesting, though, is the last two bars here. Never once has fame been the motive. Far from it. Respect first, next up, my net worth. Remember what Kendrick said on Like That and Euphoria. On Like That, he said, DOT, the money, power, respect, the last one is better. Basically saying, out of money, power, and respect, the respect is most important. Here, J. Cole says, respect is the most important thing. Next up, my net worth, aka money, and fame has never been the motive. On Euphoria, Kendrick had switched up the three things that he was talking about. It was no longer money, power, respect. It was now the money, power, and fame. On Like That, he was talking about himself, saying the money, power, respect. On Euphoria, he was talking about Drake's favorite things, the money, power, and fame. He emphasizes that later in Euphoria by saying only you like being famous when he's talking to Drake or maybe even J. Cole. But it definitely felt like that was more aimed towards Drake, right? And then you have here J. Cole saying something very similar that aligns with Kendrick, right? The respect is first, then the net worth, the money, and fame has never been important to him. Then Cole continues rapping, it's hard to write as hard as the God does. Y'all toddlers to me stop bothering me. Young Simba, some guys threw some hate my way, but only thing they should say is, Cole, you're like a father to me. The top ain't really what I thought it would be, and so I jumped off and landed back at the bottom and restarted at a level where I wasn't regarded as much, just to climb past them again and tell them all to keep up. I love it. Truly, I'm aging backwards. Now, a couple things here. Maybe this is in reference to the fact that the fall off will not be the last body of work that we hear from J. Cole, right? Because there's a lot of imagery, a lot of discussion in this verse about Cole being dead, falling off, being at the bottom, and then re-emerging. Him saying, truly, I'm aging backwards, maybe that's a double meaning. I mean, we know that the first song he introduced us to the fall off with was the track where he narrates his life in reverse order. And when you approach something like a sport, when you're aging backwards, it's almost like you're becoming younger. You have more endurance. You're stronger. You got your youthful energy back, right? Maybe that's what Cole is saying here. Like, his version of the fall off is just evolving into a better form than he's ever been before. But I do gotta say, this is him trying to reframe the whole apology thing as some sort of like, oh, I didn't like what I saw at the top when I was Muhammad Ali, when I was the best rapper, so I jumped back to the bottom just to challenge myself, right? That's a cop-out. Don't get me wrong, as a Kendrick, quote-unquote glazer, as you guys have called me in the past.
Kendrick just opened his mouth, and I'm about to put my dick in it right now.
I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I never want to hear Cole rap again, right? I'm more than happy to hear Cole, even on his, cocky type of stuff. That's fine. But when it gets to a point where you're like, yeah, I voluntarily just kind of gave up my spot at the top. Like, I could have had it if I wanted to, but, what did he say on Port Antonio? A gun isn't what I want it to be. Like, bro, let's not pretend like the world wasn't clowning 7-Minute Drill when it first came out. Or not clowning, but the reception was not what you thought it might be, right? And then you waited a week so that it could count towards the sales of your first week for that Might Delete Later project, and then you decided to delete the song. That whole thing seemed a lot more calculated and, pressure induced than just not enjoying your time at the top of the game, and so voluntarily you decided to fall off again. That's a cop-out. And he drops more of these type of bars at the end of the verse when he raps, I used to be top seed. Apology dropped me way out of the top 3. No problem, I'm probably my best when they doubt me. Watch me, watch me, watch me. That type of energy I don't mind, because that's not Cole saying like I voluntarily removed myself out of the big 3 or out of the top 3. It's him saying the people decided because I didn't compete, I wasn't the top 3. And, I'm going to do great with this type of pressure on me. This is how I'm going to perform at my best when everybody doubts me, right? And I like how, he's not going too deep into it like he was with Port Antonio, because I don't think Cole can win either way, right? Like we said before, hip-hop is in this weird point of division where the two biggest rappers, Drake and Kendrick Lamar, have their massive fan bases kind of more united within, but also like colliding and clashing against each other more than ever before. And Cole, he made a dumb move by, kind of jumping out the gate, dissing Kendrick too early, right? And he regrets it. But whatever he says at this point is either going to piss off the Kendrick fans or the Drake fans. Because Cole is kind of in the middle, it's like if he leans too far one side, being like, sorry, Drake, I kind of left you stranded there and I really started this whole battle by dropping the first diss, that's going to upset Kendrick fans because it's like, dude, you didn't need to fight Drake's battles for him or with him, right? You don't need to apologize. Like, that's kind of what he was doing on Port Antonio, which is a stupid way to look at this whole thing, especially when you're like, I walked away with their blood on me, and this was such an evil battle for social media gimmicks, and I'm a better person for not participating in it.
Cap.
You look stupid saying that. And then aside from the Kendrick fan base, you'd piss off the Drake fan base by being like, I made a mistake, Kendrick. I'm sorry for jumping out the gate, dissing you too early when maybe I should have stepped back and thought about this more. So I bring all this up to say I don't think Cole needs to go that in depth as to why he apologized. I think he made an impulsive move. He regretted it. He didn't want to compete. And as long as at this point he's not rapping about like, I would have knocked the head off of any rapper that I actually competed with, but if I smoke a rapper, it's going to be legit. I'm not going to do it for clout. As long as he stays away from talking like that, I don't really care to hear him go into depth about why he apologized, right? I think we have a clear answer from him. And at this point, he's kind of just giving like very vague allusions to his thoughts on the aftermath of the music industry and social media and fan base division after this beef, and also, where he kind of thinks he ranks and places amongst this new climate and how he's just willing to work his way out of that bad perception or bad reputation that he received from apologizing. So all that to say, I think this is kind of a good way to approach the whole situation and wipe a clean slate for this new project that's coming next week that he's been teasing for damn near 10 years, right? The next song up is Golden Goose Freestyle, which is a freestyle to Can I Live by Black Rob featuring the Locks. And these bars are interesting to me. A lot of rappers make dough, then they're prone to lose it. For crumbs, dumb guys sold their soul to Lucian. Universal distribution, but I own the music. Best guy breathing, leaving no confusion. Hop on every guy's song, abuse it, catch bodies for my own amusement. Guys cheating and I won't excuse it. If I said it, then I wrote it, stupid. Whew, these are interesting bars. Okay, so he's got, some ghostwriting allusions, some ghostwriting jabs here, right? Dissing rappers with a ghostwriter. If he said it, then that means he wrote it. He wrote everything down. Who else is most notorious for having a ghostwriter? Who just sued Lucian Grange, the CEO of UMG, or didn't sue Lucian, but sued UMG and tied Lucian into the lawsuit, right? Who was that just sued the record label over a rap battle, right?
I study rap battles for a living.
Who was it that signed a $400 million contract to Lucian Grange, to UMG, and is now claiming that the very same record label he signed to used Not Like Us, Kendrick's diss track, against him to essentially damage his reputation so that he can't turn around and ask for more money when the contract expires and they need to re-up. It sounds like none other than La Brianna, who is tied up in a deal with the devil, in a deal with Lucian and UMG, right? And Lucian had actually wrote a letter to the judge in Drake's lawsuit to say UMG owns a large portion of Drake's catalog and they would have no incentive to actually destroy his reputation. So they basically admitted when battling Drake in this legal battle that they own a large portion of his catalog, right? Here, J. Cole is saying that certain rappers sell their soul to Lucian Grange. Now, he could be talking about Kendrick as well, because ironically, all of them are signed under Universal, right? Cole here is saying, though, Universal distribution, but I own the music. The irony is that in Drake's lawsuit, he actually described that Kendrick Lamar has the same situation with PG Lang. PG Lang distributes their music through Interscope Records, which is a record label under UMG, but PG Lang owns the master recordings. So Kendrick with PG Lang with his new music is in the same situation as J. Cole is saying in this bar, right? So is he saying that Kendrick sold his soul to Lucian the same way Drake was saying, they used Kendrick as a puppet to just destroy Drake's reputation so they can, renegotiate his contract at a cheaper rate because his brand will be tarnished? Or is Cole talking about Drake, who sold his soul to Lucian for that $400 million massive contract, which in the past has been described as a 360 deal on steroids? A 360 deal is when the label owns aspects of all your different revenue streams, the touring, the merch, the music itself, etc. Drake's deal was described as that 360 deal on steroids, and now he's out here suing UMG, claiming they damaged his reputation. And he's known for using ghostwriters. 3 things that Cole is referencing in these bars. So you guys tell me, you think these are about Drake? I do gotta say, man, I said this before in the past, I don't think J. Cole takes accountability for a lot of things. I mean, even with the whole Cameron situation, it should never get to a point where another rapper you looked up to has to sue you because you made a promise on compensating him for his feature and you weren't able to get to it because you were scared to show your face to the world because you apologized for a diss song that you also didn't really take accountability for because you said all these things and then you just kind of backtracked and pretended like you didn't mean them. And now you're here on these records after you already kind of apologized to Drake on Port Antonio, kind of apologized to Kendrick after 7 Minute Drill. And, you're up in the air, kind of maybe dissing both of them, maybe dissing neither of them, not really putting a name on the bullet, but making the bars specific enough where it seems like you're referencing key elements of either their careers, their personas, or even the beef itself, but still playing it too safe to be like, I'm not talking to anyone. I hate how rappers have to farm engagement by dissing or deriding or hating. I'm not about that. I'm too good for that. I just sign checks. I write commas. I paint pictures with my pen. But here you are again dissing someone, right? Let's look at these other lyrics, right? And you tell me if you think Cole is taking accountability for a mess that he caused. Again, I'm not saying I'm never going to listen to J. Cole again. I still love J. Cole's music as much as I used to, but if you want to tell me I'm a hater, go right ahead. I'm sorry, J. Cole cannot take accountability for the situations he's created. All right, let's look at these lyrics. Poison of all different sorts that they're using. If the streams say you're winning, why is your tour losing? When the math ain't mathing, of course you're juicing. That means the bots are boosting. This stuff, I'm sorry guys, it has to be a Drake diss, alright? It could also be a Kendrick diss. That's where it's like, he's so ambiguous that it's kind of like, is he dissing both of them or just one of them? the whole bot reference, right? We know that Kendrick Lamar was accused of using bots by Drake in his UMG lawsuit, but then we also know there were multiple lawsuits hit Drake's way saying that he funnels money allegedly through Stake to fund bots on social media to sway narratives and bots on his music, right? There was that whole private investigator that called up the little minion that Akademiks hired to push propaganda on Twitter to say that she knows for a fact that Drake uses bots.
How Drake telling y'all other niggas bot? Y'all trying to get at Drake because y'all think he bot? Come on, man.
We also know that Drake had to cancel part of his New Zealand tour. We also know that Drake is the highest streamed rapper, right? So for J. Cole to say, if the streams say you're winning, then why are your tours losing? When the math isn't mathing, of course you're juicing. We also know that Drake has been accused of getting liposuction on his stomach and using steroids to make himself look stronger than he is, right? Of course you're juicing, but also juicing the numbers, right? With the bots, you're boosting the numbers with the bots. But why I say these bars could be, ambiguous enough where maybe he's just talking about a rapper, any rapper in general, is it's like there are plenty of rappers who have tons and tons of streams on Spotify, etc., but they can't sell tours or they've had to cancel tours. We saw Lil Baby had to cancel his tour. Playboi Carti had to postpone his tour. I believe Meek Mill also had to cancel tours. Then on the flip side of things, you have artists like The Clips or JID who, their album sold okay, but they didn't go crazy with the streams. Same thing with Freddie Gibbs. But meanwhile, they're easily consistently selling out 3,000 to 5,000 people venues for entire tours, right? Their numbers are adding up. Meanwhile, other people like Drake, who's the highest streamed artist but has to cancel his New Zealand shows. Meanwhile, this can't apply to Kendrick because Kendrick is out here doing, consistent stadiums, something that Cole has never done, right? And anyways, if we continue going with these bars, they sound more and more like he's talking about Drake. Let's read. Cut the tough guy image. It's not conducive to breathing. Don't gamble with your life because the ops are cruising. Word to Mike Vick, your dog might get shot for losing, and I don't like those odds. Now, tons of Drake references here, all right? The tough guy image, we on this channel call Drake the phony Montana manufactured mob boss, right? Ever since, Mob Ties, that song in 2018, he's been pretending to be a freaking mob boss, right? Here, J. Cole is saying, cut the tough guy image. We know Drake also is one of the biggest, ambassadors or sponsors for the gambling company Stake, right? He's been pushing that like crazy over the last few years. Here, J. Cole, after the tough guy bar, makes a reference to gambling in the next line. Don't gamble with your life because the ops are cruising. Then he makes a reference to dogs, right? We know that this whole thing started with Kendrick on Like That saying, for all your dogs getting buried, that's a K without the nines. He gonna see Pet Cemetery, right? That's a reference to Drake's album For All the Dogs, which J. Cole was actually on. And here he's saying, word to Mike Vick, your dog might get shot for losing. Who lost that rap battle? Who is making constant references to dogs? It's also, maybe he's talking about how Drake should have approached Kendrick Lamar here, right? Because if you read these bars all together, cut the tough guy image, it's not conducive to breathing. AKA, if you want to stay alive, if you want to keep breathing, you should not be acting like a tough guy. Don't gamble with your life because the ops are cruising, right? Don't take that gamble of jumping out the gate dissing Kendrick because you might lose, right? Word to Mike Vick, your dog might get shot for losing. And I don't like those odds, so I stay in my lane despite every bit of dirt thrown my way. What did Cole do? He got dirt thrown on his name, quote unquote, from Kendrick Lamar on that Like That verse. He jumped out the gate, but then he realized he didn't like the odds, so he stayed in his lane. Listen, no one except for Cole can tell you who he's talking about, but he won't tell you, so I'll tell you what I think. I think he's most definitely talking about Drake here and, kind of almost warning Drake to cut the fruity, phony Montana manufactured mob boss persona. And later in the verse, we get some more callbacks to the whole money, power, respect thing, right? I despise my celebrity. I'm not into fame. Money brings respect in this game. Ain't it a shame how them things interchange? Basically, isn't it sad that, to earn respect, you need to attain wealth? He also makes, a little callback to TLC, one of the members, Chili, who Drake had also referenced in a play on words on his comeback single, What Did I Miss, right? He said something like, you get punched in your face on some TLC stuff because you'll need a chili ice pack for your left eye. Here, J. Cole is saying, Don't be silly, want the chili, similar to Usher Raymond, because Usher Raymond had dated Chili from TLC. Interesting set of bars here. Seems like J. Cole is kind of saying, like, I stay out the way, I do my own thing, I'm not into the fame, right? Like, I'm just here to get my dollars, stack my bread, do my own thing, and define my greatness on my own terms, kind of. And speaking of, you know, all these bars where Cole is kind of warning someone to cut the tough guy act, right? Or else they might get killed. On the next song, Winter Storm Freestyle, which is a freestyle to Biggie's song Who Shot Ya, Cole raps, come witness perfection, these guys perplexing, like witness protection, get whole new identities, then start rapping. But what happened to the real you? I used to get self-conscious around real gangsters and I still do. Find peace with the audience you appeal to. Be yourself, live in your truth, guys will feel you. Embrace hunger, what don't make you stronger will kill you. The pain will build you, God will heal you. Don't make your moves off a dollar bill, it's not as fail-proof. As say, following your heart that way, long as you have faith, the path stays tenfold. Now, the whole thing about not chasing a dollar, it's interesting because on the song before, he says, you know, money brings respect in this game, and isn't it a shame how those things interchange, like how those things are related, right? Isn't it a shame that we have to chase money to earn respect? On this next song, he's almost saying, like, don't chase the money to, you know, build your self-worth. It'll come quicker and, you know, more organically by just following your heart, staying on your proper path. And of course, he's talking again about rappers, you know, getting these whole new identities and not really rapping about the things that their fans initially fell in love with them for. Who else can this relate to aside from Drake? Well, a couple rappers, but no one really comes to mind that J. Cole has had, you know, real interaction with aside from Drake that these bars really seem like they align with. On the next song, 99 Build Freestyle, which is a freestyle to Money Power Respect by The Lox featuring DMX and Lil Kim, J. Cole makes more references to the botting allegations that a lot of the industry has faced over the last few years, where he raps, these guys swear they're doing numbers, but it's more to the story. You bust it down, it's botted streams and kids ordering merch. When guys hate, it's like a blessing in the form of a curse. I've been anointed since a quart of water slaughtered my thirst. Now, who could he be referencing here? Well, he talks about people hating and him saying it's like a blessing in the form of a curse. We know in terms of hating, the only one who really called out J. Cole by name on a diss track is Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar was also tied to the botting allegations through Drake's lawsuit. Is this Cole taking aim at Kendrick? It's possible, but Kendrick's not really the one known for bundling, and neither is Drake. And here J. Cole is talking about guys who basically either inflate their numbers with fake streams, with bots, or inflate their numbers through bundles, like packaging their merch, their t-shirts and sweaters with free CDs to just artificially increase the number of sales of their album, right? Kendrick even referenced this on Playboi Carti's song, Good Credit, where he said they're bundling, man, Chicago slang, which one of you guys will merch it? He kind of dispelled the botting rumors there because he says, the numbers are nothing, I've really been him, I promise. I think, again, lines like this is J. Cole kind of just taking shots in the air and seeing whoever it'll stick with, because there's a lot of rappers out here botting their streams and bundling their music to artificially inflate their sales. But you can't really, who are you going to pinpoint that on, right? Does he have a problem with Travis? Travis is the bundle king. The Clips just sold, you know, the most amount they've ever sold in a first week because almost half of those sales came from merch bundles. Same thing with A$AP Rocky, right? And that's not a bad thing. That means you have diehard fans who are really going to go on your website and actually support not just the music where they can listen on a streaming platform, but your actual products. And it's funny because J. Cole has been on this whole kind of rollout since the Inevitable podcast, really focusing on direct-to-consumer products that his fans can purchase. So for him to then, you know, talk down on bundling, it's kind of weird to me. Now, these bars, I think, could be Cole also kind of reflecting on why he opted out from the beef, why he chose to apologize and stay out the way, right? He raps, outside of the music, I'm as cool as your water faucet. Like, I'm just a chill guy. I state to myself, I'm not talkative. Y'all taught me not to have a heart-to-heart with a monster. They're all too heartless. Who calls themselves the boogeyman, a monster? Who tried to, you know, have a heart-to-heart with Drake on Meet the Grams? Like the skeletons that these fellas locked in the closet, I smelt it from the jump because it felt too awkward around it. What did Cole fall back from? His beef with Kendrick. And he raps, I fell back, my dog in heaven pushing Hellcats would tell you from the beginning, I wonder how could I dodge it? Remember on Euphoria, Kendrick had that bar. Everybody want to be demon till you get chipped by a throwaway. Hellcat. From the beginning, I wondered how could I dodge it? Cole says in the past, you know, he felt pressured to respond to the beef. And then he so quickly apologized. It's almost like when this whole thing first came about, instead of responding, he had first thought, like, how can I just avoid actually getting into this confrontation? And he continues rapping, the beef ain't real, so there's no reason to squash it. The game is not either, so it's easy for me to pause it. With one verse, I dissemble narratives, get your theories killed. The murder weapon was superior skill. I think this part of the verse is definitely him, being honest and telling us, like, from the beginning, this beef didn't seem real to me and I was trying to find a way to dodge it. I stated myself, this stuff is all fake, which kind of ties back to, his sentiments on Port Antonio, where he's talking about how this whole thing was inflated by bot comments and social media narratives. And it's easy for him to pause it. The game is fake. It's easy for me to pause it. It's easy for me to disattach and kind of be on my own path and do my own thing and stay away from all these narratives. And how do I overcome the narratives? Through superior skill. Again, kind of sounds like Cole, not taking accountability, right? Because he's talking about, like, y'all taught me not to have a heart-to-heart with a monster. They're all too heartless. I felt awkward from the jump around this whole thing, and I was trying to think, how can I dodge it? But were you really feeling that way? Because you jumped out the gate very quickly after that, like that verse. You were the first one to do it. And now you're pretending like, I was on too high of a moral ground, like I always wanted to kind of stay out the way from this fake beef and this fake game, this fake industry. Meanwhile, you were the one talking like you were the best, right? You were the one ready for the competition. And when it came, who folded? J Fold. Lacking accountability. Now we got some interesting bars here because remember throughout the whole Joey Badass, Rayvon, Daylight battle, right? A lot of the bars that Joey was aiming at Daylight and Rayvon were plays on words on both their names, right? Light rays and daylights and all that stuff. So here J. Cole is doing the same thing. Unloaded the whole cartridge on foes who wholeheartedly opposed the chosen one that rose like the golden sun in the morning to give light to even those that shun. Rays from the flows radiate the globe, melt in snow on this frozen tundra. Here he's, making reference to both Daylight's name and Rayvon's name, which was a very common kind of tactic that Joey Badass was using in his diss tracks against Rayvon and Daylight, having wordplay surrounding their names, right? And Cole continues here, known as the rap game that's been overcome with loads of marketing plans based on randomly dissing and hating on the next man. I understand. Imagine working as hard as you can on this album you planned, hoping it charges your brand, but as soon as you drop it, the world's ignoring again. Got you wondering why, till you start to notice the trend. Drama enhances the attention brought to the fans on popular channels, so you want to hop on the bandwagon of battle rapping and throwing shots in a jam. So conveniently, after these sun and light and ray bars, you start getting shots that seem like they're fitting to fit the shoe of Joey Badass's situation, right? Joey Badass is someone who threw shots at J. Cole himself earlier in 2025 when he said, might delete later, I know damn sure Joey won't. And of course, he shot at the whole West Coast and really just wanted to battle Kendrick Lamar. And it was all to culminate in this mixtape or album release that he had in the summer of 2025. It didn't sell that well. The whole beef he concocted didn't really go as planned, right? Because it didn't end up culminating into higher ticket sales, higher album sales. It really led to nothing for Joey. If anything, it only really built up the buzz for Rayvon. And here, J. Cole is talking about rappers who discovered that a good marketing plan could be jumping out the gate, dissing people just to kind of sell your album, thinking it'll charge your brand. And, imagine how sad it is that you could work on this album thinking that it'll go crazy and you make the whole marketing rollout about it centered around you dissing, and then people only cared about the drama of the battle and not the music itself. And as for Cole, he was in a similar situation because obviously 7 Minute Drill, his diss track against Kendrick, came as the last track on Might Delete Later, right? That album was really just centered around that one particular diss and the moment of that beef that J. Cole was finally taking a shot and starting this battle against Kendrick Lamar. And so he says here, I had my chance, but I dropped it, which means my only option is to do the opposite then. Lead with the skill. And if you guys weren't able to tell, a lot of the kind of topics that he's touching on, even though, he's not going too deep into societal issues or his own life or whatever, but he's talking about things like building your own path, valuing respect over money and fame, leading with your skill set, letting that do the talking instead of the drama. And on the first track off this little mixtape, he's talking about how, people are peddling, yapping and hating and deriding and gossip. That's the new form of currency, engagement. And here on the final track, he's talking about how it's sad that you could build this whole album, this whole rollout centered around dissing, thinking that the drama will sell your project for you. And in the end, you come to the sad reality that it's only the drama selling. It's not going to carry the weight of actually selling your project. And that's why Cole opted out of, trying to gain buzz or trying to build his name off of battle rapping or dissing other rappers, and instead he's trying to, you know, cement his legacy and build his greatness through the actual just raw skill set and raw talent that he has. And this has been a pretty prevalent recurring theme in a lot of the subject matter in Cole's career over the last few years. You know, he did that freestyle to Drake's Pipe Down song a couple of years back where he said, you know, they threw the bronze at me behind K-Dot and Drake. Those guys are superstars to me, but maybe I'm just afraid of my own luminosity. And then basically wrapped up that freestyle by saying, my greatness is not going to come from, you know, trying to chase someone else's legacy or to stand ahead of them. It's going to come from me embracing my own pen. And if I'm not the greatest, but I know that, you know, I tried my hardest and pushed myself to be the best I could be, then I'm okay with that. That was how he capped off that freestyle, and it seems like he's kind of in that similar headspace here. I think, again, it's just kind of a cop-out, right? Like, you did try to diss, you did try to jump into that competition, you did say you were Muhammad Ali, but when the reception to your diss track against Kendrick was not great, you ended up folding and apologizing. But I do think two things can be true at once. I think J. Cole can, you know, live in this kind of fairy tale where he thinks that the only reason why he opted out of the battle was for peace of mind, and that he's better off by kind of going down this path where he just tries to be in competition with himself instead of everyone else. He could believe that, and then he can also create amazing, you know, monumental bodies of work like hopefully The Fall Off will be, and people will still talk about him like he's one of the greats because his pen will still truly express that. It's just in a certain lane of hip-hop, he'll never be regarded as the greatest, and that would be in the form of competition, right? Stepping up to the plate when you're actually challenged by another MC. And he ends this song and this mixtape, and I will end this video off with this set of bars, which is very interesting, where Cole says, if hip-hop is back, JID should chart platinum. Anything less than that, it means y'all capping. This is obviously a callback to Kendrick on Hood Politics on To Pimp a Butterfly, where he said, critics want to mention what they miss when hip-hop was rapping. Mother effer, if you did, then Killer Mike would be platinum. Y'all priorities effed up, put the energy in the wrong stuff. Cole's echoing the same exact sentiment here with kind of an interpolation of that bar, right? Saying that, you know, if hip hop is really back, which people are saying, you know, there's this big shift, then JID would be platinum. Now, to be honest, I think, you know, there's more blame to be placed on Cole than hip hop fans as a whole for why JID was not platinum. I think Cole could have stood next to JID a lot more throughout his career, and that would have given JID a lot more visibility, considering JID is, you know, the forefront runner of Dreamville, J. Cole's label. And I don't know if JID was necessarily going for making, you know, big blockbuster hits on his last project, right? Which is why I don't think that necessarily occurred. But like I mentioned earlier in this video, JID is selling out, you know, 3,000 people venues multiple nights in a row for his entire tour. So I don't think he's necessarily in a bad position or people aren't supporting him enough. You guys let me know what you think on that. And he ends it off rapping, I'm hyped. Mike Jordan just started broadcasting and all the old rappers getting bags podcasting. It's beautiful. And I don't think this is a diss, but I do find it interesting that, you know, he says this right after saying that, you know, he almost lost passion and then he remembered why he started rapping. And a lot of these guys who are now, you know, podcasting seem like it's because they either lost the passion for rapping or it's just not, you know, making them money, right? It's not a fruitful enough career where they can do it full time. And I think at this point, you know, with all the different podcasters I played you clips of in this video, right? From Glasses to Fat Joe and then Akademiks saying what he said, or Cameron suing J. Cole for allegedly not making an appearance on his podcast. It seems like J. Cole is not really in the good graces of, you know, rappers who turn podcasters or just hip hop podcasters in general. So I can't tell if this is really a dig at them or if he's kind of bigging them up here. But ultimately, I think this is a cool tape. You know, like I don't think a DJ Clue hosted mixtape is supposed to come with some sort of real, you know, deep societal commentary or, you know, a big grand concept. I think we're going to get that on The Fall Off. I'm excited for it. I think this is still rapping at a very high level. I do think that, you know, for the last few years, it feels like Cole has kind of been rapping on autopilot in terms of subject matter. I think from like just a technical rapping perspective, he might be at the highest he's ever been in his career. But in terms of subject matter, it feels like we've gotten a lot of the same from Cole for the last, since the off season, really, where he's just rapping about how great he is and just flexing his pen, right? Which is cool. But I mean, Cole has been talking about stashing songs for damn near decades to specifically put on The Fall Off. So I think that project is going to be something monumental. And I think that's where all the naysayers and doubters of J. Cole over the last few years will probably be proven wrong. I'm excited. I explained in a previous video that I did on J. Cole what, he's spoken to, in different interviews in terms of what the concept of the fall off is. So I'll place an old clip from an old video here where, you can kind of get an understanding of where J. Cole is going with this fall off concept if you want that. And if not, let me know what you guys think and I'll catch you in the next one. And in that case, let old Rapaholics take it away. 2018 is the first time he introduces the concept of the fall off. The outro to his album KOD 1985, Intro to the Fall Off, where he, sends a stark warning to rappers like Lil Pump, who are kind of just in it for the money, in it for the mumbling, letting them know the lifestyle they lead can lead them down a bad path. That's a video for another day. But Cole says he actually thought of the title originally in 2016 when he started working on For Your Eyes Only. And he says the title captures the concept of a decline or a loss of edge. Now, he's officially been teasing this album since like 2020, so already 5 years now. We haven't heard a real Cole album unless you count Might Delete Later, but that was kind of like a mixtape. We haven't heard a real Cole project in 4 years, and it's ironic because he was criticizing Kendrick for barely dropping any music. But when describing what this title truly means, it feels like Cole was kind of conflicted in it, right? He reflected on how the source of the inspiration for this concept came after Forest Hills Drive, where he feels like he accomplished the highest heights of his career at that point in time. Remember, he was facing those big challenges from Drake and Kendrick Lamar to meet the same type of critical praise Kendrick was getting and the same type of commercial success that Drake had had. He finally accomplished that with Forest Hills Drive when he just, didn't let his insecurities get the best of him. He was meditating a lot, removed himself from social media, and really locked in on some conceptual storytelling vibes. But after that came the tour, the hits. It felt like Cole was on top of the world, and he says that's when he felt comfortable. And he realized at one point in time when trying to cook up his next project, like, wow, I really lost my edge. He was suffering writer's block. That lack of confidence was in full effect. And he's like, oh, this is what the fall off is. And he stepped back at that period of time and asked himself, like, you accomplished a lot. You can just live, drive off on the coast, have a happy life, forget about everything else. Your legacy is cemented. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to keep going? And ultimately, he chose to keep going.
This is 2015 after my biggest album, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. I got off tour. Bro, I was comfortable. I was comfy. I was watching TV shows for the first time, bro, since I was in my teens. Like, I had never done this because I had been going nonstop with a big goal. Every day I open my laptop up, try to make a beat, and then I try to write. And then when I start writing, I'll be like, man, this shit kind of ass, if I'm being honest with myself. And it was like, oh, you hella comfortable. I had lost some of that bite, and I had a real talk with myself. I was like, yo, bro, you accomplished a lot. It's like, yo, you made it to where you wanted to make it to. Do you even want to keep going? Do you want to retire right now? I thought, and I was like, what's the answer? And I felt the answer immediately, and it was like, nah, not yet. If I go out and close the chapter, not saying I will, but if I do, I want to do it at the highest level of achievement and skill set that I ever been in my life. So I was like, yo, that's going to take time. So since then, I was like, oh, there's an album for this, and I ain't know the name. And over time, the name and the story and my skills grew. It's a level I want to reach for myself.
But ultimately, he's very vague on whether or not the fall off as a concept, as an album, truly means that this is when he falls off, or this is when he gracefully exits, right? Like, it sounds like with this concept, he's almost trying to redefine what the fall off means, almost like a graceful exit instead of like kind of being forced out due to an apparent lack of quality or inspiration. But does that mean this is the final project? I mean, if it does, that's okay. But if the core of this concept is to show how during that pivotal moment in time, you had a conversation with yourself internally and realized you didn't want to stop, you didn't want to fall off, then why would you center this whole concept around the fact that this would be your last project and you're almost choosing to fall off? Maybe he's leaving out some key details here, some key questions that'll only be answered on the album, but I do feel like it's a very strange choice to name this highly anticipated album that you've been teasing for half a decade The Fall Off, if this is not truly where you want to end things. Yeah, so that was an old clip of me explaining what J. Cole explained the fall off concept to be. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay tuned for The Fall Off.
I study
Rapaholics
for a living.